Now I thought I would say a little bit about evolution. I am in fact on a book tour promoting my book, The Greatest Show on Earth. First, what is the greatest show on Earth? Well, in my view, it's life, it's the existence of life. It is an utterly astounding, remarkable fact that we are here. There are billions of planets in the universe, and it's perfectly possible that on every one of those planets except one, there is only dull things like rocks and sand and rivers. No life. On this planet, possibly this planet alone, although I doubt it, on this planet we have things that move, that fly, that swim, that run, that dig, that hunt, that court, that mate, moving around in complicated ways, that have eyes that form images, that they analyze in brains which are kind of onboard computers, that have hearts and lungs and kidneys and muscles, legs, wings. They fly, they swim, they do all these things that are quite different from what you would expect of objects that obey the laws of physics. Living things do not disobey the laws of physics. They obey every jot and tittle of the laws of physics. But they come into being by a very, very special process. Complexity and the illusion of design, which is what characterizes all living things, have come into being on this planet by one process, one remarkable process that we've only understood, we've only known about since the middle of the 19th century, since Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859. We now know, and the evidence since Darwin's time has piled up and piled up and piled up massively, we now know that all living creatures on this planet are descended from a single common ancestor, possibly something like a bacterium. We know this because the genetic code, the DNA code, whereby genes are translated into proteins which then get translated into bodies, that code, and it's quite a complicated code, is absolutely the same, almost absolutely the same in all living creatures. And that's got to mean that we all are descended from a single ancestor. We know that we all fall on a family tree. We know that we are all cousins. We know that humans' closest surviving cousins are chimpanzees. We share a common ancestor with chimpanzees who lived about 6 or 7 million years ago. Our next closest cousins are gorillas, whose common ancestor with us and chimpanzees lived a bit longer ago than that, about 9 million years, maybe 10 million years. And then our next closest cousins are orangutans, then gibbons, then old world monkeys, and so on. We are cousins of kangaroos. We are cousins of slugs and worms and octopuses and lobsters and oak trees and cabbages. All living creatures are our cousins in the literal sense that we share a common ancestor. The evidence for this, as I said, is now overwhelming. It was pretty overwhelming by the time Darwin had finished with it in 1859. It's now become even more overwhelming. And this book, The Greatest Show on Earth, is my attempt to summarize the evidence. The most obvious kind of evidence that occurs to people is fossils. And I think it was Mr. Bowen mentioned the new fossil that was published a couple of days ago, Ardipithecus ramidus, one of the hominid fossils, one of the human fossils discovered. Actually, it was discovered about 15 years ago, but they just got around to publishing all the details about it. It's an astonishing animal. But there are fossils throughout the geological record, going back especially to about 5.5 million years ago. That's when fossils really started coming richly. And since that time, we've had evidence of invertebrate fossils, then fish-like fossils, and then some of the fish came out onto the land, and we find amphibian fossils, things like salamanders, and then some of them became rather more well adapted to the land, reptile fossils, and then some of the reptiles became extremely large and notable, dinosaurs, Dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago, all except for birds, which are surviving dinosaurs. And the other main branch of reptiles became mammals, and that of course is us. And you can follow through the fossil record and see gradual change, gradually, not improvement in an obvious sense, but in a sense a kind of improvement, increasing complexity. And about 4 million years ago, creatures like Ardipithecus appeared in the fossil record. About 3 million years ago, creatures like Australopithecus, the so-called Lucy, getting more and more human-like. And then the genus Homo, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, a couple of 100,000 years ago. And here we still are.